All right. Well, welcome everybody to the November 29th of 2022 meeting of the Pennsylvania Pirate Party. I'm going to ask everybody for some IDs. I'm Drew Bingaman. I'm the current captain of the PA Pirate Party. Johnny, go ahead.
I'm John Robinson. I am the current secretary of the Pennsylvania Pirate Party.
John.
Hi, it's John Merchelinski. Special guest tonight, speaking about constitutional amendments.
And Alex.
How's it going? My name is Alex Darlington. Glad to be here. I'm with the Stair Party, but we work. Me and Drew are good buds, and I always like to be at his meetings, at these Pirate Party meetings.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. John, do you want to give us a little background of the biggest thing we've got going on right now is we want to start preparing people for next year's elections. One of the things that may, if everything goes right, we'll talk about that in a minute. Is there will be how many total are there? There's 5 here and one more.
Yeah, there's the 5 that we have on the screen. And then one more is for the sexual assault statute of limitations, which again was spurned on by the scandal in the Catholic Church, the report that the new governor-elect had put out a year ago now, 2 years ago. I can't absolutely be certain on the time frame of that, but that's what we're looking at with that one, which isn't as controversial as the other ones that we're looking at on the screen, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Sorry. And so these 5 and the other one have already been through one session.
Yeah, and I'm looking at an article now from WHYY. Last year, they approved before the summer recess. They have to late Thursday night. Hang on a second, 1 second. I just want to make sure I'm getting this right before I, go ahead and, tell people the wrong. I don't want to tell people the wrong information. Yeah, so again, they passed it last year in July with the abortion amendment, so it's basically the same Senate Bill 6. They have to pass it again. It says if lawmakers pass it again, and then the voters approve it in the statewide referendum, it'll add language to the Constitution saying that the document does not grant the right to taxpayer-funded abortion or any other right relating to abortion, which, essentially, it doesn't come out and say that it's banning abortion outright. However, it's basically you have no right to abortion. So, there's not going to, if they close down abortion clinics, they close down abortion clinics, or if they make, procedures illegal or medicines illegal, there's no right in the Constitution for you to be protected for that. So that's one of them.
Let me just hold you up there a second.
No problem.
Do you know how long the House has to get these done if they're going to put them in the primary?
Well, it has to be pretty much as soon as the session begins, because you have your advertising requirements and you have your the primaries in May of this year, because it's not a presidential year, or May of this year, because it's not a presidential year. So it's a really short time frame, and like I said, from gleaning this article, they have to pass it again, because
okay.
But if you look at these starting top down, let's start with number 1, I guess. So what they want to do here is they just want to change. They don't want to have the lieutenant governor on the ballot at all, in terms of in the primary, where right now Pennsylvanians get to select who the party's second in charge would be. So, your lieutenant governor, they're elected in the primary. This would it would essentially take that away, and it would be like the presidential race where the president gets to select his vice president. So
Right.
that's what that's doing to that.
So that doesn't really. This is just a matter of how we select.
Yeah, I mean,
the governor.
some of these, so like this one isn't that controversial.
And this doesn't separate the elections, right? This doesn't. So like, because this year when we voted for governor, we voted for them as a team, not as
in the
not
general
separately.
Yeah, in the general election. In the primary, though, we voted for the gubernatorial nominee and the lieutenant gubernatorial nominees, and then whoever obviously got the highest votes became a team. In the general, Brian Sims was on the Democrats. Brian Sims was running, and Austin Davis was running, and a couple other people were running, but Josh Shapiro endorsed Austin Davis. So that's kind of where we ended up with that.
I was gonna say, I don't honestly don't even remember who won that primary, anyways. Who is now going to be our lieutenant governor?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, yeah. So it's not changing anything. It's more a procedural issue for the major parties, and I'm not in a major party, and I frankly don't care how they select their nominees. I mean, I do, because most of the time they pick terrible people, especially the Republicans anymore. But there's a lot of arguments can be made on this for the Democrats as well. It's choosing not the best people.
Right.
So yeah, so that's not one that we're going to be raising a red flag about. That doesn't really affect anything. I mean, it affects it's basically an internal party issue to me.
Yeah,
and
it really doesn't. I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah,
like most people don't realize they're voting for lieutenant governor in the primaries anyway until they get in there and they're actually voting for lieutenant governor. So
right.
Whenever I see anything that someone in government is going approvingly, this will establish or promote unity, that gets a hard pass from me.
Well, it's usually it's honestly, when they say that, it's usually the opposite.
Exactly.
So I mean, that's been my experience.
So the next one, this one, I think I might need a little bit of any education on. I'll give you the floor, John.
So this is again coming from some of the last constitutional amendments that that Pennsylvania approved regarding like the COVID restrictions and stuff like that. So this is just another way. It's the biggest thing on it. It says solidifies checks and balances and citizens' voices and stuff like that. But the bottom, the third bullet point, is where it really seems to me that this was, it's stemming from the COVID restrictions and things like that. Ensures that no administration has the authority to issue regulations against the voice of the people. So again, that goes back to the COVID restrictions, as we've seen when the state of Pennsylvania passed those other restrictions where, the legislature can end a disaster thing. And so it kind of goes further with some checks on the governor and some of the executive orders that he could.
So checks are good. Is there anything that we need to be cautious about with this one that you know of? Because this obviously isn't the exact wording of the amendment. This is just sort of telling us what it does.
Yeah, this is just giving us a synopsis. I haven't really sat down and thoroughly got into Senate Bill 6. However, I have read over it and looking at it, there's not many issues that we really need to be worried about in this one. However, these amendments, are going to be on the ballot, and I mean, we need to make sure people know what amendments to vote for and what ones not to, because if you just if they lump them all together, people are going to vote for everything instead of one thing. So
Sure.
um,
Yeah, that's what I'm not telling people I'm not about telling people how to vote, but I'm better telling people that there's red flags in this thing and you probably shouldn't pass it. That's where I'm at. But
right.
um anything else about the number 2 that you think we should discuss?
Not really. However, the Supreme Court is hearing a case soon, if they haven't already heard oral arguments on it, regarding the independent legislature theory, which would essentially take, the executive branch out of some decision making, and the
Okay.
same with when they do redistricting, it'll take the courts out of needing to approve it and stuff like that. It could mean that they could really appoint their own electors, legally. So I expect the Supreme Court to, when they do hear it, when they do hear the case, I expect it to take them a little while to rule on that. Obviously with the sensitivity of where the Supreme Court is these days, with everything else that's been going on, I don't think they're going to jump to any immediate decisions. And hopefully, in my opinion, it needs to be, the case needs to be, decided in favor of the state, because the independent legislature theory is really dangerous.
It sounds like it's becoming more of like a strong parliament type of a system.
Yeah, that's
More, and the executive branch is really only there to carry out it's more of a figurehead position. Like,
pretty much. Yeah, unfortunately, that's so.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely issues with a strong executive, just as there are a weak one. It's just So, well, I guess we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. And see how that goes. All right, so here's the first big one, right?
Yeah, here's the one we talked about a little bit earlier. So essentially, what Mastriano had campaigned on, and a lot of Republicans have campaigned on since Roe v. Wade was struck down by the court. Neither U.S. nor Pennsylvania constitutions provide a right to an abortion or require that taxpayer funds be used towards abortion. I wasn't very aware of taxpayer funds being used for abortions. The Hyde Amendment on the federal level pretty much prohibited that to begin with.
Yeah. Let me hold you up a second. It is my since I have had a fair share of experience on being associated or hanging out with, at least both sides of these two issues. I'm going to compare abortion to gun control. Generally, people who are very much for gun control have no idea what the hell they're fucking talking about. And the same thing very much goes for pro-life people. They hear their exaggerated horror stories. The once in a lifetime doctor from somewhere who was butchering babies. It's the same level of hyperbole and misinformation. Everybody thinks that an abortion is a doctor, sticking a giant vacuum cleaner up in the womb and sucking the baby out, sucking the baby's brains out. It's if we could actually get the facts to people on both of those issues, I think we'd have a lot less angry political discussions. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. So
no, and I agree with you there. Like, with the comparison. Most of these people that are calling for pro-life abortion or pro-life and an abortion ban are old white men who have been in Congress for decades, and a lot of it they don't know. Obviously, it's a woman's decision and her doctor's decision. Obviously, just in the last debate, Dr. Oz famously said it was between a woman, her doctor, and the local politicians. Well, that's one too many.
Yeah.
It needs to be between a woman and her doctor, and the government of both the United States or the states, do not need to get involved in this. Despite what they say on this, the proposal does not change current law whatsoever, contrary to lots of fear-mongering talking points distributed on this action. It's they're somewhat right on that, but when you put it in the Constitution that you have no right to an abortion, that allows states to dictate things regarding abortion. You know what I mean? Like Plan B, or or abortion clinics. Strict licensing for abortion clinics. Like you have to have surgery privileges at the local hospital, and things like that. And the amendment, as they say here on their page, the amendment would simply protect the status quo in Pennsylvania. Well, if it's a status quo in Pennsylvania, then you don't need to change anything. If it's a status quo, why specifically add something that's it's not a problem? If it wasn't a problem, if it's not broke, why fix it?
I feel like this one in particular was riding the highs of the Supreme Court decision. And I mean, I don't know the timing. This is complete conjecture on my part, but it just feels this way.
Yeah, I mean,
just like they're riding the high and feeling like that all that hype of the red wave that they had pre-election. Like we're taking over the world, and fuck anybody that doesn't agree with us.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we've seen that didn't happen. Obviously, the control of the United States House changed. Senate pretty much stayed the same, and in Pennsylvania, the Democrats flipped the House for the first time since 2010. So it's I think that one was let's puff our chest up. We're going to take over, and we're going to take over the Senate. We're going to be able to have, this the veto override ability and things like that. And that obviously just didn't happen. So, now they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to this one. I mean, are they still going to try and push it through? Yeah, but we've seen places like, look at Kansas, for example. They tried to do this in Kansas, and it was overwhelmingly defeated. So, I mean, and I believe Pennsylvania, even though as red of a state as Pennsylvania is, the majority of Pennsylvanians do not want an abortion ban. And obviously in our area, in our county, you've seen it numerous times again, that obviously there's a strong Republican registration advantage here for them. But if you talk to people, even Republicans that I've talked to, they're not as crazy against abortion as some people would make you believe in this. And it's crazy. I think a lot of it comes down to, some of them believe that it's a woman's decision with her doctor, and definitely not some old guy, who's probably wearing a toupee.
And I can tell you another thing that has galvanized a lot of people from the Republican side who would probably normally be voting for a pro-life candidate, is that the latest pro-life candidates have been so pro-life, like Mastriano, who says no exceptions, nothing. It's like, it's criminal. Like, with rhetoric like that, it doesn't surprise me that was a losing, that was a losing proposition. If they were more moderate on that, or if they hadn't ran on that as a part of their platform, things might have changed there. But I know that was a lot of it for especially that. Well, with Mastriano, a lot of it is just the personality that they picked. But I feel like there's a backlash to that. No exceptions, no nothing, which never was the case, by the way.
Yeah,
That was never the case.
It's he said that, and he's realistically, he took that line from Trump. I mean, Trump, when he was interviewed, said that there needs to be punishment for a woman who has an abortion. So, I mean, Trump said it. So I guess he felt that, he could take that line and run with it. And it wasn't just the abortion issue with him either. He was so far right, if he would have came to the middle, I mean, or at least softened some of his positions and didn't, I mean, anybody else wins the gubernatorial nomination in Pennsylvania, and it's a lot closer race than what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of the same goes with the Senate race, especially with Fetterman's health issues. I think that was probably one of the biggest legitimate complaints that a lot of people had, but he still won by how many 100,000 votes?
Yeah, so, I mean that's where people were worried.
Right,
people were worried about that, but I mean ultimately, I mean, it wasn't that big of an issue for them.
No. So these next two, 4 and 5, are, talking about elections and people thinking that there's massive election fraud. I saw somebody was talking about how there were 14 million mail-in votes reported at one point overnight when the tallies were coming in, and they want to know how that was possible. It's not possible. Somebody made a mistake putting it into the computer, and they're never going to admit it, because that happened before in election returns when some third parties would end up all of a sudden, hey, we just all of a sudden got 100,000 votes. Where did they come from? I don't know. But come the morning, they're gone. They're there for 4 hours, and then they're gone. But it doesn't make a math. It doesn't make a math problematic like these guys are talking about, where there was 14 point some million. We don't even have that many registered voters in Pennsylvania.
Right.
So yeah. I mean, one of these is kind of like something we experienced at the polling place this year.
Yeah, it was crazy, huh?
Yes. So requiring voter identifications at elections. So this is something a lot of people have a really hard time understanding Pennsylvania law as it stands.
So as you may or may not, I know Drew, excuse me, but you only need voter identification at the polls currently if you vote there for the first time, if you're a first-time registered voter, or you have gone inactive. You need an ID and to fill out an affirmation of elector, which is just saying you are who you are. You still live where you lived, and you're eligible to vote in the precinct. The Republicans for years now have gone on about requiring voter identification to elections. They say in their talking points, election fraud is a proven concern. The only voter fraud we've seen in Pennsylvania was from some Republicans. There might have been a Democrat that I believe was found guilty of fraud, but most of it was Republicans. I mean, even in the 2020 election, I think the only thing we've seen, there isn't this massive voter fraud that Donald Trump and his entourage want to say there are. I mean, look at Arizona and Maricopa County. Like they're, Trump's on whatever is Truth Social, I guess, and he's saying, oh well, Carrie Lake needs to be declared the winner, and even if Maricopa County, even if there is a slight anomaly, she still wouldn't make up the you know what I mean, like. And so this is something, like I said before, Republicans have been on about for years. And they say identification cards are easily obtainable by all Pennsylvanians. So that's simply not true. You know what I mean? The elderly, have a hard time getting to. It's not like these ID centers are downtown where you can take a bus or walk. Obviously, a lot
Most of them in our area are not.
No, I mean, look at where Selinsgrove is. Berwick, I would say, would probably be the closest in-town one. That would be the close, but it's simply just not that easy to obtain. I mean, these elderly people who have voted for 70 or 80 years now require an ID, and it's hard for them to go get it because it's difficult. It's not easily obtainable as the GOP wants us to believe. Again, poll after poll, they say requiring voter identification is supported across party lines in most Pennsylvanians. That again is simply not true. When you look at the polls, it's more or less Republicans. You ask maybe in their polls, they're only asking a fraction of what they're asking Republicans. It's more skewed Republican than it is Democrat or third party. And that's so you're obviously going to get that skew. If there was,
yeah. So, it's pretty. So if people are complaining about like the dead voting, because that's always something that I hear, something I hear about the dead voting. Well, that's easy to check. You can check that if certain people voted in elections after they had passed away. That would be very easy to prove that those people were actually, there's some sort of fraud there. But how this massive fraud of hundreds of thousands of voters is not taking place because hundreds of thousands of voters are coming in person and doing it fraudulently. If there's any shenanigans, it's higher up in the food chain.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you don't see, these massive amounts of dead people coming to vote and swaying.
You go into the database when you vote. You can if anybody hasn't ever looked up voter registration data, it will you can get the information that person has voted. You don't know how they voted, but you know that they voted in each of these past elections. So it goes into a database, so it's not that it wouldn't be that difficult to me to if somebody really thought it was real and could, be pretty easy to prove if it was real. So
yeah, I mean, Democrats, Republicans, and I'm pretty sure the Libertarian Party, Drew, if I'm not mistaken, has their own databases where you can look up voter registration as well as, whether they voted, if they're a super voter or.
It all comes from the central database at the state.
So,
everything, even our local elections, they talk to the state database, and while it doesn't, it's supposed to. The DMV computer is supposed to talk to the main database at the state, at the Department of State too, but we're finding that doesn't happen. So I don't see this. This is another one of those things where, because we're generally known as not having a voter ID law, we have a compromise. We have a compromised voter ID law. Like you said in the beginning, first time at a polling place, or those other conditions that say you need an ID this time because either we haven't seen you in a while or, you're new. So give us your signature. And I think that's part of the reason why that's there now, because you can't sign it in person if you sign up online.
Right.
So you get a checked an ID checked signature the first time to go into the book, which is what you're supposed to compare to.
Exactly. I mean, there are checks and balances that are in place in Pennsylvania that, make sure that, you are who you are. And if there's a doubt that you are who you are, you still get to vote, but you have to be verified. So that's, then that plays into, it'll play into number 5 here too. As you see, it's, the Auditor General must conduct election audits. I don't see that need either. I mean, the Pennsylvania Department of State, the local counties have done excellent jobs with the elections. I mean, obviously you've seen this year, like Luzerne County running out of ballots. That was such a debacle. But
there were debacle. There have been mistakes. There have been issues. But with hundreds of thousands of votes, margin of victory, the two major things that we voted for this time around here in the state, the election deniers. There is no possible way to have the kind of election fraud that must have that would have need to have happened.
Exactly, and an audit by somebody other than the Department of State, such as the Auditor General. Don't forget the Auditor General is a partisan position, so it's a Democrat, Republican, or whatever. So it's not it's not a nonpartisan office. So if the Democrat is an Auditor General and the election goes the Republican way, like what's to say, the Republicans aren't going to say, oh, well, there's massive fraud, or the Democrats are going to say there's massive fraud, depending on who's in office. The people of the Department of State they may be partisan, they may be registered, but in their jobs, they are nonpartisan. They are required to do everything by the book, and they do. And it's, it says that, current election audits lack transparency and are difficult to understand. They're really not. They don't lack transparency. I mean, you get the results. They tell you. When you say you lack transparency, it means that when you say there's something wrong and people say there's not, that's what they mean by lacks transparency. I mean, this is all coming again from 2020 and Donald Trump and, well, I lost the election. And,
has to be fraud.
Ballots came in the middle of the night, and that's what happens when you can only canvass votes after an 8 p.m. deadline.
Mm-hmm.
John, I think if nothing else, the last 3 years have proven that elections not going the Republican way are very hard for Republicans to understand. They seem befuddled.
Well, yeah, exactly. They expect, they expect it to go their way because they either gerrymandered districts where, we're supposed to win,
Mm-hmm.
and then they don't win, and they're like, oh, well, it's fraud because we didn't win. Well, maybe you just had a bad candidate, or, what I mean, Donald Trump, and negatively affected your candidacy, your party, you know what I mean? Like even Herschel Walker now down in Texas has pretty much told Trump just to phone it in that he doesn't want to campaign with him. But I mean, I think that's a little, too little too late down there. But, it all stems from 2020. All of these constitutional amendments, with the exception of the statute of limitations, one that we spoke of earlier. A lot of this stems from the 2020 election and the election deniers, and as much as people don't want to believe that this is where it's coming from, this is where it's coming from.
And it's all bullshit.
Yeah,
there is nothing. There is nothing. If this is what we're saying is about, there's an audit trail. When you come in, you sign your name next to the signature that we have on file, and then that's part of the audit trail. Our machines now have a paper audit trail. They didn't used to have a paper audit trail. Now they do. This craziness. It would be, if this was actually happening, the proof would already be on us. The Attorney General or the FBI would be making arrests for massive amounts of voter fraud. And, it's just
I mean, look at Trump's own Attorney General, Attorney General Barr. He pretty much in sworn testimony pretty much said that, you know, all of the things that Trump claimed in 2020 were, well, bullshit. And that was his exact words, I believe. So when you have your own administration, your own cabinet members saying that they followed the trail and there was nothing, you know what I mean? Minor level stuff. You know, machines weren't flipping votes. You know, it's you know, and you have people, and it's only going to get worse for people, because I mean, look at people like Mike Lindell. He's running for Republican National Committee chair. So I mean, when you have people like this in government or in politics such as that, you know, the two-party system is not perfect. I mean, Drew, I know we've talked about it several times.
Oh yeah.
And even as a Democrat, I still don't believe that it's a perfect system, because, you know, personally, I'd rather have more competition and more options than just one or two people. You know, because there are bad candidates out there, whether they're a bad Democrat, a bad Republican. You know, there are bad candidates out there, and bad candidates end up making bad lawmakers when there's not a choice for people, you know, when they choose the lesser of two evils. And then that's how we sit here and talk about constitutional amendments that are absolutely shit.
Yep, exactly. I know I wanted to talk about. Oh, I did want to talk about one other topic with you guys.
Mhm.
And just as a note, if you are an independent or a third party member, we will definitely keep you updated on whether these constitutional amendments are going to be there in the primary. So, and if they are, yes, you can vote for them. It is not completely closed if these constitutional amendments are up for vote. So keep that in your mind, that you may have to go vote in May instead of staying home or working like you normally would. But
yeah, and I will keep you updated, Drew, as well.
Yeah.
I know, you know, as much as I hear, I'll pass it on to you to make sure.
Yeah, I don't have much hope for these, considering the last election. But you know, yeah, there's honestly, for number 3, the abortion clarification, there's no need for that. If it's not addressed in our Constitution now, it would have to be completely. I mean, it would have to be completely gone through litigation, anyways, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it'll go through litigation as standard, but, you know, and again, if it's not broke, why fix it? If it's the status quo, it's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you're doing this so you can exert your muscle, and it's an end around of, you know, it's an end around of the normal legislative process,
mhm.
because it takes the governor completely out of this, and, you know, that's.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
I mean,
that's
that's-
pretty stupid. But okay, so what I did want to talk about is John Gordner's resigning.
Yes, I just saw that yesterday.
And I wanted to hear your guys' opinion on if you know, we're Allison and I were talking about, you know, who would, because there's probably going to be a special election.
There will be, yeah. So from December 30th, which is tomorrow, once the resignation is official, the lieutenant governor then has, I mean, it's
Is it
30 days, 90 days.
Yeah, he doesn't have long. He doesn't have
No,
long to call.
It's
a
30
special.
days to call a special election, to be held within no earlier than 30 days or something like that. It's not a large time frame. So
no, these special elections they happen quick. Well, the point is that they don't want to leave the seat vacant for that long.
right, exactly.
But we were talking about potential replacements, and Fred Keller's name came up.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Fred Keller's name came up, and I said, do you think he'd be interested in a step back down? And I don't know.
Well,
I don't know who Fred Keller is.
he was he was up until the end of 21, the representative in our area. That was it, the 10th district.
Yeah, I believe it was 10th or something like that. But yeah, with
12th, according to this, 12th.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Well,
with yeah.
Yeah, that's actually from the. Yeah, he's the 12th in this. Yeah. Anyways, it doesn't matter. He was
Yeah,
our
he was-
local congressman,
Okay.
basically.
Why
but,
do we want Fred Keller to take the?
We don't. I just was making conversation.
Oh, okay.
I honestly, I mean, if Fred Keller's interested, I don't think he's going to run. I think he's just going to sit this one out because I know Linda Culver has expressed interest in running, and well, you know,
Oh, that would be.
pretty much if you know Drew is. We've talked about this numerous times before. If you know Linda runs, Linda wins. And I
And
mean,
for everyone's information, that is Linda Schlegel Culver, who is the. I don't. Are we still the 108th
yeah,
district?
she's a rep in the 108th district.
Still
yes.
100. I don't even know what this. All this redistricting stuff has me so screwed up. We've had.
We're still the 108th.
Yeah,
However,
so
there was they split up the 107. They rearranged the 107th and 108th. We're still firmly in the 108th, but there was some changes.
Well, now Linda has bounced back from some pretty serious health issues.
Yeah, she had
last year.
She had a kidney transplant, and she's doing very well with that. I had a chance to speak to her personally. Having stage 4 kidney disease myself, we kind of shared some insights on that. She's doing very well. Her health is very well, and for her, it's a logical next step. You know what I mean? I don't, speaking personally
it's
for the
less
Democrats-
campaigning.
Well, yeah, because it's every 4 years instead of every 2. So
the House is. I mean, you're basically always on an election cycle. I as much as I approve of voting for your representatives every 2 years, the cost and the just the stress and the expense and how much money are we wasting in these goddamn elections? I mean, I don't know. I have so many mixed feelings about that, but
and not only that, but you're elected 1 year, you have a year to actually legislate and govern, and then the next year you're back into a campaign cycle. So you know what I mean. A lot of candidates are afraid to do something in that election year because they don't want to get defeated in the election. So you realistically have like a year and 2 months to actually legislate and govern before you have to start campaigning again. At least with the state senate, you have at least 3 years to be able to make an impact and govern. So.
And the Pennsylvania leadership system sucks when it comes to once you're in and you're in one of the major parties, you pretty much, unless you're in leadership, you toe the line.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't know if anybody has expressed interest other than, Linda's a good, Linda is a good choice. Her family and my family actually go back a long ways. So
Linda's the type of person that will reach across the aisle and get work done that needs to be done. Am I saying she's not going to toe the Republican line when it comes to needing to toe the Republican line? Absolutely not. She does that, but she is also not afraid to reach across the aisle and work with Democrats to get things done and to move Pennsylvania forward. We've seen that all the time.
How many terms has she had now?
I don't know. It's
been a few years. Yeah, and she just moved her office too.
Yeah, she moved it to up behind where Sunbury Hospital used to be, one of the houses up there, which is. I'm glad she got a new office. I mean, I think she needed one. The mansion but it's kind of it kind of takes the accessibility away for older people that may not have the ability to get up to the hill. But I mean, we have rapid transit and stuff like that. But it's still, I mean, But I mean, she, if it's a better office for her, I can't. There's obviously can't fault her for taking the office. It's going to better help her constituents a little bit better than,
Sure.
you know.
Johnny,
Yes.
what's
You've been
happening?
quiet tonight.
What's happening?
Well, you guys know a lot more about voter verification and stuff like that than I do. I was just listening.
Well, there's a good reason for that. John is he's a judge of elections and has been for quite a while.
Cool.
And I'm a constable, and we see these things, and I'm
Right.
actually due for re-election next year. So
it's actually a family affair at our precinct because
that's
my
right.
wife and I and Drew and Allison pretty much run the poll. So there's it's kind of a family affair when we're all there.
Yeah.
I
So
have another subject I'd like to talk about. Okay, the primaries are going to be in May, correct?
yep.
So, how do we multi-maneuver this?
The primaries.
Because we want to start getting ready now, don't we?
Sure.
Well,
yeah.
I think it's going to be hard for you guys to maneuver the primary, obviously, but
Well, no, but that's what determines who we'd be running against. We don't want to participate in the primary themselves.
right. Okay.
Primary is the deadline, so
Yeah.
we'd want to get everything keyed up by late March, wouldn't we? If we're going to do it, if we can do it, maybe we can't do a full PA multi-maneuver.
Well, I've been thinking about that, and I think part of it might need to be see if we can do a push, like a candidate recruiting push,
Okay.
and then with the responses we get from there. And we probably could mostly almost steal the Molten Maneuver letter if anybody still has a copy of it.
Ooh, I don't.
I might there might be an electronic copy somewhere laying around. But we could probably use mostly that wording and cut and paste it as we need it.
Also, since this is technically for a broader audience, perhaps we should explain what the multi-maneuver is.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, we can briefly. So in Pennsylvania,
three of us know, but
yeah, that we know, and I apologize to anybody watching this later. It feels like they don't know what the hell we're fucking talking about. The Molten Maneuver is the name of a procedure that the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania used over the past few years and got a lot of people elected, and
including yourself.
Yeah, including myself. The way the Pennsylvania elections work, the local elections are on the odd years, and most of the time, a lot of the positions that are up for election, a lot of them are auditors and constables and election officials.
There's even mayors and
there are township supervisors,
councils, and stuff that are open. I mean, I looked at the election results from 4 years ago. And I mean, like McEwensville, Herndon and all that, there was nobody on the ballot for mayor and stuff like that. So,
yep.
I mean, that's a good way to get, personally, obviously I'm a Democrat, but it's a good way to get, if you want, like you talked about, Drew, getting libertarians elected, it's also a good way to get Democrats elected too. I mean, obviously.
A good way to get people, well,
anybody elected, really.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these positions are very important positions, and so what happens is that the Democrats and Republicans have the primaries, and what comes out of the primaries is who's on the November ballot, except for independents, libertarians, Greens, blah 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 blah. Anybody that's not a Democrat or Republican, you have from mid late March till August 1st to collect signatures and get your name on the ballot. So what that gives you is information in hand at the end of May to know who's going to be on the ballot, and there's a lot of positions that have nobody on the ballot. So taking the information of nobody on the ballot, you can then, if you have a large mailing list or member list, you can work from that and then connect people together with open positions that are in your organization that might be willing to run for those. So that's essentially the Molten maneuver.
Mhm.
And there, I think we might have to do it a little bit. We might have to do it backwards. In that we look for people that are willing to just run for office, period, in their local area, and then we try to match them up with open positions.
And of course, we can also prioritize. I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
some people go, never run against this person, or this person will probably die during the campaign. So I might want to run against them. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first step of all that would be candidate recruitment.
I think we definitely need to start try and figure out how the best way to do that is. I'm not sure what kind of money we would be looking at to try and get some mailing lists that might be possible, or maybe some mining of the voter registration database. I have been thinking about it, but I haven't come up with a master plan. Let's put it that way. And so I am open to suggestions.
Well, something else we could do. I'm just thinking social media.
Mm-hmm.
If we go for right route for that, we could get a lot of good publicity, and thus, at least get them to a form to fill out, which is obvious. We want to get people to fill out forms, right?
Which we have a form on our website.
So we have to get people there to fill it out.
Yep.
So we could host a couple of live Q&As or AMAs or something like that about that, and we could publicize those. We could hit appropriate hashtags on various networks regularly. And I do like the idea of the whole Instagram, TikTok, the micro video format. That would be a great thing. And one thing we could start with is making candidate recruitment micro videos and just hashtag it all up and put them out there and see what happens.
That's good. I like that. I'm gonna candidate. I'm writing that down.
Okay.
There are definitely some good ideas. I mean, especially with being as small as you guys are.
Yeah, we need to recruit people that would be interested. And I will say this. I will say this now. If you are interested, and I'm gonna say this down the line too. But if you're interested and you're not comfortable with putting the Pirate Party name on your sheet, and you just want to put down independent, that's fine with me. And I will absolutely still help anybody that's interested in doing that to do that. So, the Pirate Party has its own identity. But honestly, one of my biggest things is really to try and help get some new people, new blood, honest blood, people that want to do things the right way instead of the corrupt old way. So I'm not as cranky about voter registration or running as a pirate, but I will be doing that myself later this year. So, or this coming year. So
you're running for re-election,
constable again. Right? Yep. Re-election. So Johnny, one little bit of official business here.
Okay.
12/13/22 as our next meeting. Is there any, I know it's the middle of December.
That should not be an issue. That should
not be an issue. Okay. No. Well, then that'll be our next meeting, same bat time, same bat channel.
Okay.
And I will get a meeting notification out then to everybody. So yeah, anything else for anybody want to kind of, as we kind of wrap it up? We're closing in on an hour here on the stream, so that's about where I'd like to be. So
Well,
Yeah.
I just want to thank you guys for having me again.
Oh
and,
yes.
You know, anytime you need me to come back and talk about anything, been more
oh,
than happy.
yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And the next thing I want to do with you is I want to play some Magic. So
Yeah, absolutely.
we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, sounds good.
So, all right. Anything from you, Johnny? Before
No,
we go?
I think we're good. I think we're good.
All right. Well, then we will close it out unless anybody has an objection. And I would like to thank everybody for joining us here. I might watch this back, and as I have time, and maybe see if I can mine a couple of short videos out of it. But we'll see. But I think we're gonna definitely try to do something for the shorter formats here soon. And I may be turning my Dr. Ooh TikTok account into Dread Pirate Drew. And because I have about 3,300 followers there, so I already can go live. So that could be good too. That could be fun sometime. So, all right, guys.
Have a good night,
Have
gentlemen.
a great
Thank
night.
you.
And
Have a good night.
thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.